Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतम सावधूतम परिजन सहितम कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुत देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्री वसादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. So today we will revise Bhagavad Gita chapters 5 and 6. Although I don't see the presenters still connected on the Zoom call, Abhishek Prabhu and Divya. Abhishek is
She'll be
first
there,
one.
Prabhu. She's just connecting headphones.
And we are also waiting for Abhishek Prabhu. I did message and we'll see how it goes. So I will first give a quick overview of chapter 5. Then we will read the translations of chapter 5. And then the presenters will present. Hopefully, Abhishek Prabhu should join by then. Then I will also do a quick summary of chapter 5, and then we'll follow the same process for chapter 6. So chapter 5. Chapter 5 overview and the sections are that title is Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. In Sanskrit, chapter 5 is titled Karma Sannyas Yoga. Chapter 5 is divided into 5 sections. Section 1 is verses 1 to 6. Title is Karma Yoga is equal to but easier than Gyan Yoga. That both Karma Yoga and Gyan Yoga are equal because they give the same results. But Karma Yoga is preferred because Karma Yoga is easier. Section 2 is verses 7 to 12, description of Nishkam Karma Yoga. That by fixing mind on Atma, Karma Yogi remains free from bondage. And many think that Karma Yoga causes bondage while renunciation leads to liberation. Krishna says this is not correct. Krishna says that if Karma Yogi fixes the mind on soul instead of the senses, then Karma Yogi will remain free from bondage. Work does not cause bondage. It is attachment that causes bondage. So Krishna is moving the focus from body to Atma. Then section 3 is verses 13 to 16. Relationship between soul, super soul, and nature. That by fixing mind on Paramatma, Karma Yogi will attain liberation. So an example to understand this is that when somebody is sick, part 1 of the recovery is to remove the sickness or the infection that causes the sickness. And part 2 is to regain strength, meaning recovery involves 2 parts that stop the negative and bring out the positive. So Atma Gyan can help one to act in a way to prevent further bondage. And Paramatma Gyan, meaning knowledge of Super Soul, knowledge of the Supreme, will lead to liberation. Section 4 is verses 17 to 26. Fixing mind on Paramatma, Karma Yogi attains liberation. And section 5 is verses 27 to 29. Introduction to Dhyan Yoga and Peace Formula. In verses 27 and 28, Arjuna was thinking either he has to do Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga. Krishna does not recommend Jnana Yoga. Rather, Krishna says that towards the end of your life, if at all somebody wants to renounce, you can follow Ashtanga Yoga instead of Jnana Yoga. And Ashtanga Yoga is elaborated in chapter 6. It's only briefly described here in verses 27 and 28. And then verse 29 talks about Bhakti Yoga, that Krishna is the only Bhoktaram. And Bhakti Yoga is elaborated in chapters 7 to 12. So we'll now read chapter 5 and the translations section by section. And then Abhishek Prabhu will present chapter 5 and then I will present chapter 5 as well. Is our dear Devraj able to read chapter 5 verses 1 to 6 translations? The title is Karma Yoga is equal to but easier than Gyan Yoga, or Archana can read.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavat. Chapter 5 Karma Yoga, Action in a Krishna Consciousness. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work. And then again, you recommended work with a devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which one of two is the more beneficial? Verse 2 The personality of a Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and the work in a devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in a devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Verse 3 One who neither hated nor desired the fruits of his activity is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all duality, easily overcome material bondage, and it is completely liberated. O mighty Am Arjuna. Verse 4 Only the ignorant speak of devotional service. Karma Yoga has been different from the analytical study of the material world. Sankhya. Those who are actually learn say that he would apply himself well to one of the path, achieve the result of both. Verse 5. One who know that the position reached by mean of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore seen analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. Verse 6 Merely renounce all activities, yet not engage in a devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But thoughtful person engaged in a devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. Haribol.
Parth Prabhu will read chapter 5, verses 7 to 12. This is section 2, and the title is Description of Nishkam Karma Yoga. 7 to 12 verses, Parth Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Text 7, section 2. Description of Nishkam Karma Yoga. One who walks in devotion, who is pure, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Verse 8 and 9. A person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. Verse 10. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Verse 11. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. Text 12. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Now, verses 13 to 16 is section 3. Title is Relationship Between Soul, Super Soul, and Nature. Ramya, 13 to 16.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Verse 13. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Verse 14. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Verse 15. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Verse 16. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nuisance is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Verse 17.
Hold on. So 17 to 26 is section 4. Title is Fixing Mind on Paramatma, Karma Yogi Attains Liberation. Mayank Prabhu, 17 to 26.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Verse 17. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. 18. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. 20. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God is already situated in transcendence. 21. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. 22. An intelligent person does not take part in the source of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. 23. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. 24. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. 26. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self realized, self disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Hare Krishna.
All right. So verses 27 to 29 is section 5. Title is Introduction to Dhyan Yoga and Peace Formula. Nitya, 27 to 29.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, text 27-28, shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eye and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breath within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who's always in this state is certainly liberated. Text 29. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me as to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material misery.
Very good. Abhishek Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just one second. Okay, thank you for this opportunity. Requesting permission and blessings from all devotees, Srila Prabhupada and Sri Sri Radha Krishna, to be able to speak on chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita called Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So, this chapter, the first section starts from verse 1 to verse 6. This section describes that Karma Yoga, like this is a comparison between Karma Yoga and Gyan Yoga, because Arjuna asked a question previously that which is better, whether renunciation is better or action in devotion is better. So in this first 6 verses, Lord Krishna describes that there is like Gyan Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Both are same because both lead to liberation. even though the levels, Karma Yoga is like Lord Krishna recommends Arjuna to perform Karma Yoga. And it is also described that it is not the activity itself which is the but activities.
Abhishek
So
Prabhu, your
yes.
voice is breaking.
Oh, oh, um,
Okay, please,
is it better now?
if you can be a little closer to somewhere internet where your connection is better.
Is it better now, Priji? Or is
Yeah,
it like previous only?
yeah, it's a little better now.
Okay. Just let me just let me know in case it starts breaking.
Okay.
I'll move places. So yes. So because activity is the nature of the soul, detachment while doing the activity is easier than detachment without activity. Gyan yoga has no activity involved. So even if someone elevates uh, through this tedious process of Gyan yoga, sustaining Gyan yoga level is very hard because that is contrary to the natural proclivity of the soul. So in this way, Lord Krishna describes briefly that Karma yoga or action in devotion is better than Gyan yoga, which does not involve any activity. But the essence here is that renunciation within activity is better than the renunciation of activity itself, which is the question which Arjuna asked. Uh, so Gyan Yoga is or Sankhya Yoga is kind of a process of detachment from matter. Bhakti Yoga is a process of attachment to Lord Krishna, and in like both are needed, like one can't sustain without the other, but bhakti yoga automatically leads to this detachment when a devotee gets attached to Lord Krishna. At a later place it is also uh, described that renunciation without activity in devotion brings only pain, so that is not the general recommended process for the masses. So this section concludes that devotion, the path of devotion is better than mere renunciation. The next section from 7 to 12 describes the Niskam Karma Yoga. Uh, so, as it was previously mentioned, that many people wrongly think that Karma Yoga causes bondage, but that is not so. The attachment within to the fruits is the actual cause of bondage, and uh, if uh, if the mind is fixed on the Lord rather than the activity of the senses, then Karma Yoga leads to liberation. So in this section, it is described that uh, soul is not the independent doer of activity for any action, like we discussed in class, that for any action, it is the soul who desires, Ishvara sanctions, and Prakriti or the modes of material nature executes, and then senses are and endeavor are involved. Material nature is the instrument cause, soul is the initiating cause, and super soul is the sanctioning cause. For a Karmyogi, even though the body is engaged in its natural activity, because body is a product of modes of material nature, but at the same time, he is always fixed in his mind on Krishna. So in this way, he can separate the mind from the body and the soul from the body. When the um, when the soul offers the results to the absolute truth, they give up the attachment and are not bound by karma. And the example is given of a lotus leaf. Like even if the lotus leaf is present on the water, but it is never touched by water. So it doesn't become wet. So the principle of action is described that our bottom line goal and motivation for action should be that we should act for purification within the material world. So the activity with the mind, body, and intelligence and the senses should be done for purification only. Um, and the senses should be engaged in the service of Krishna. This is the way in which a Nishkam Charan Yogi acts. Uh, but like he does activity, but on the inside he stays detached. So outwardly it may seem that he is doing activity, but inside he is not bound by those actions. Next three verses, no, next four, 13, four verses, 13 to 16, describe the relationship between super soul, um, soul and the material nature and getting liberated. So now Lord Krishna is shifting the knowledge from the knowledge of soul to the knowledge of Paramatma, from Atma Gyan to Paramatma Gyan. In the beginning, the body is described as a city with 9 gates. Uh, these nine, so the soul is living in this body, which is compared to a city with 9 gates. And these 9 gates are our input and output with this material world. So the soul gets bound because of the presence of these 9 gates. Uh, so here it is described that even though the soul residing within this city of 9 gates, he may think that he is the owner. It appears that he is the owner of this body, but it is not so because the body is always like the body, the proprietor, the real proprietor of the body and the controller of the body is Lord Himself and His energies. So the living entity may think himself as the independent doer, but in actuality, the activities are carried out by the three modes. The living entity has some free will, and by the use of his uh, uh, free will, the the uh, the effects of the modes of material nature may become stronger or weaker on himself. A question may be raised here is that if the living being is not the actual uh, doer or the independent doer, then is the Lord responsible for the good or bad activities which the living entity does? So the next verse in this section describes that the Lord is not responsible for anyone's sinful or pious activity. Here an analogy was given in the class that just like for a student studying in school, the school is not responsible for the division the student gets. The student is always responsible. The school teaches the student to choose the right answer, but it is the student's endeavor and effort and his desire to, based on which, his effort based on which he gets a particular grade. Uh, so the school is not responsible uh, if the student does not perform well in the exam. Similarly, Lord Krishna has given the instructions and the correct way of doing things, but he never forces us to choose any path, even though his recommendations are very clear in Bhagavad Gita. So, so whatever sinful, good or bad reactions which we get are like we are actually responsible for those. In the end, it is in this section it is described that uh, because of ignorance in darkness, we may see little with the torchlight, but when the sun rises, everything becomes clear. So, in our initial stages of sadhana bhakti, we use the scriptural knowledge as the torchlight, and it helps us to this torchlight of scriptural knowledge helps us to move forward. But as we advance, this knowledge become like it not the knowledge automatically rises in our heart by Lord Krishna's mercy, making everything clear, just like the sun. The next section from 17 to 26 um, describes how Karmyogi attains liberation by fixing his mind on the Lord. So it is described that when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge all are fixed in the Supreme Lord, then one gains one pointed attention in Lord Krishna. Otherwise, his attention is or his intelligence will not be one pointed. So such a person uh, is a liberated devotee. The vision of such person is described that he sees everyone with equal vision, and that equal vision means that he is seeing not the body, but he is seeing the soul and the super soul present in each body, knowing that we are all part and parcel of the same Lord and we are all related. So he doesn't differentiate between living entities because he's seeing everyone connected to the Lord. The result of having such an equivision is described that such a person is liberated even while present in this material world. And then, like the next few verses in this section and the next section, they describe the process of to become Samadarshina. So these qualities are described and these characteristics are described, and we can test from these qualities described in these verses the level of our spiritual advancement. Especially like in provoking situations, we can see that how we respond in comparison to these qualities, and yeah, we can understand where we stand. So the essence of this section is to redirect our outer enjoying mentality to the inner enjoyment of the soul. Uh, Happiness and like many characteristics are given that, like for example, happiness and distress, like such a person is not affected by happiness and distress because these are the dualities which affects an attached person. Lord Krishna has given a step by step process to enjoy at the level of soul to come out of this material sense enjoyment. First is to be detached from the external world because there is nothing of value in this external material world. Then we have to. Then the step is to seek happiness within, uh, pleasure in spiritual activity. Then there is concentration on the Supreme Lord, and that gives imperishable, permanent happiness within. The key verse in this section is 5.22 for sense control. So it is said that like the uh, um, like even if the sense organs are uh, see like they are engaged in their activity, like eyes see the uh, pleasurable object. If we get, if we desire to enjoy, uh, uh, caught up in this cycle, and even if we don't physically enjoy these sense objects, they create cravings within us. So like it is said that like this sense this and whatever these external objects are, even if they are palatable, they are not retainable. We cannot enjoy them independently because our body has uh, its own limitation. So when uh, when for like the same um, when like a Nishkam Karma Yogi, he drowns out all of these desires, which are anyways temporary, like not going to give any permanent happiness. He drowns out these desires um, um, in service to Lord Krishna, with the desire to when the desire to please Lord Krishna is so strong, all other material desires, they are removed. So this is the essence of purification, that the material tendencies are replaced with spiritual inclination. In the final three verses, uh, which forms the last section, there is a brief description of Dhyan Yoga, that how a Dhyan Yogi acts. He is controlling his internal world and his external world via the process of Ashtanga Yoga. And the final verse of this section, it describes the peace formula, that how we can attain so the verse says Bhoktaram Yajna Sapta Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatpamam Shantim Vichati. So when we understand that whatever yajna and austerities we do, actually Lord Krishna is the enjoy for that. And at the same time, he is the controller of everything, but he is also my best friend. So when we know that when we actually realize that the most uh, powerful person is our best friend, and uh, he is our best well-wisher, then we don't have to worry about any other thing. So with this, this section ends, and I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
All right. Let me also quickly summarize chapter 5, and then we'll pause for questions, comments, and realizations. So chapter 4 concluded with Krishna telling to Arjuna to rise and fight. Chapter 5 starts with Arjuna's doubts because in 4.39, Krishna has talked about Shanti. In 4.41, Krishna has stated karma sannyas, plus there is no mention of fighting in the entire chapter 4 except the last verse, 4.42. Therefore, Arjuna is confused whether to fight or not, because the words karma sannyas can literally be taken as to give up karma. But that's not what Krishna is saying by the words karma sannyas. So in principle, Arjuna's question at the start of chapter 5 is similar to Arjuna's question at the start of chapter 3. Chapter 3 and chapter 5 are similar chapters. Chapter 5 has deeper discussion on the same topic. Chapter 5 is titled Karma Sannyas Yoga. Chapter 5 explains how to practice the knowledge given in chapter 4. So chapter 5 is not on sannyas, rather is sannyas within karma, that how karma can lead to no reaction, so that doing karma is same as sannyas. So chapter 5 is the practice of the jnana we studied in chapter 4. How to practice karma that creates no reaction, so that one can do renunciation within karma. Chapter 5 is not renunciation of action. Rather, chapter 5 is about renunciation within action. Upon Arjuna's inquiry whether to renounce or to do devotional service, Krishna says both karma yoga and jnana yoga are equal, because karma yoga and jnana yoga gives the same results of liberation. But in practice, karma yoga is easier than jnana yoga. By karma yoga, Krishna is not referring to normal karma yoga. Rather, Krishna is referring to the highest form of karma yoga of serving Krishna. Therefore, karma yoga becomes bhakti yoga, means work in devotion. So work does not cause bondage. Rather, attachment causes bondage. If one is not attached, then there is no bondage. Krishna is saying to follow a karma, means not renunciation of action, rather renunciation within action, because activity is natural for the soul. And detachment while doing activity is easier compared to detachment with no activity, because giving up activity is not natural for the soul. The example is, say, creating a vacuum is very hard. And even harder is to sustain the vacuum. So Gyan Yoga is harder, and even if somebody is able to elevate himself on the path of Gyan Yoga, to sustain that Gyan Yoga level is even harder. So Gyan Yoga may be higher on the yoga ladder than Karma Yoga, But Gyan Yoga will not lead to higher destination, because at best, the Gyan Yogi can attain is Brahman effulgence, while Karma Yoga, if done as a service to Lord, one can attain Bhagwan realization, the highest spiritual realization. So sannyas without doing any activity leads to misery and dukkha, because inactivity is difficult and not natural for the soul. While engaged in activity means doing devotional service, does not cause bondage. Working with detachment is the same as being sannyas. And sannyasi is not judged as sannyasi by orange dress. So don't renounce work. Don't renounce possession. Rather, renounce enjoying mentality. If Karma Yogi fixes the mind on the soul instead of senses, then Karma Yogi will remain free from bondage. If person is not detached, and even if such a person goes to forest, he's still living with 6 wives, the 5 senses and the mind. Hence, that person will still be bound. If one is self-controlled and detached, and even if he stays at home with wife, children, he's still not bound. By fixing mind on Paramatma, Karma Yogi will attain liberation. Atma Gyan can help one to act in a way to prevent further bondage, and Paramatma Gyan, knowledge of the Supersoul, will lead to liberation. One who knows, understands that simply senses are coming in contact with sense objects, and he does not think that I am the doer of anything. The wise understand that so many things happening within the body which are necessary for my existence, for which I am not the doer of those things. If I have no desire for results, no attachment to results, then what is the motivation for my work? The answer Krishna gives in 5.11, that purification is the only motivation for work. Arjuna was focused on body, therefore Arjuna was bound. Krishna moved the focus onto soul to remain unbound. And now Krishna will move the focus onto Paramatma to attain liberation. And Krishna will go on to state that, by the way, I am that Paramatma within everybody. Supreme Lord is not responsible for sinful and pious acts of anybody. Jiva desires, Krishna sanctions, and Prakriti executes. Krishna is maker of the Varnashram system. Krishna does not make someone Shudra because Krishna dislikes that person. Rather, Krishna puts one in a Shudra body because of past karma and past inclinations. So the question is, why does living entity act in self-defeating ways? The answer is, knowledge of the living entity is covered by ignorance. And by knowledge given by the Lord, ignorance can be removed. The inner darkness or the lack of clarity is removed by knowledge. When knowledge awakens, one understands the presence of Supreme Lord, and Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes the focus instead of my body. When I understand I am a soul and I act as a soul, means doing devotional service, serving Krishna, then there will be no bondage. So we have to concentrate these 4 items of intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge, all 4 on Krishna, to be steady on the path of spirituality. Then you will become Samadarshina and see everyone and everything equal. With such equal vision, you are already liberated even while being in this material world. To attain such Samadarshina stage, Krishna describes the process. Means Krishna describes the characteristics that a Siddha possesses, and these characteristics are the goals for a sadhaka. and test your spiritual advancement by testing for yourself how much of these qualities you have developed, and test these qualities when you are provoked, not under normal circumstances. So the qualities that Krishna has described, which are possessed by a siddha and which are the goals for sadhaka, are: first is to be equipoised amid happiness and distress. Next is detach from external pleasures, otherwise it leads to misery. So you have to seek happiness within. Next is why external pleasure leads to misery? Because sense pleasure is a source of misery, is dukkha yoni, a womb of misery. Why womb of misery? Because sense pleasure is unattainable, and even if sense pleasure is attainable, they are not palatable. And even if it is palatable, it is not retainable. So sense enjoyment is the false currency that keeps us trading in the stock exchange of illusion. The stock exchange of illusion is the material world. The next quality is that theoretically knowing that sense gratification leads to misery, but my desires do not go away by this theoretical knowledge. So what should I do with my desires? Therefore, Krishna says you have to learn to tolerate. Tolerance is the wall between temptation and acting on that temptation. By Krishna conscious practice, desires will not go away. Rather, we become prepared to fight the urges. By Krishna conscious practice, we learn to tolerate the mind's roars and demands. Next quality is that after Krishna explained turning outwards leads to misery. Therefore, Krishna says, now you turn inwards and find happiness within, instead of letting our memory filled with remembering past sense gratification activities. We should fill our memory with beautiful darshan, memorable kirtan, excellent Srimad Bhagavatam class, etc. We replace those old memories with our devotional memories. And for this, we have to consciously cultivate. And lastly, we have to purify kama as well as krodha, because unfulfilled kama leads to krodha and fulfilled kama leads to lobha. Both ways is a trap. The solution is to counter lust and anger. One needs higher way to live and higher way to experience happiness. An example to understand this is that an alcoholic is told to eat chocolates when they get a craving to drink alcohol. Now, alcoholic now becomes addicted to chocolates. So chocolate may not be as harmful as alcohol, but this is not really a solution. From the evil material urge of alcohol to another lesser evil material urge of chocolate is still evil. Therefore, one needs purification. Purification means replacement of material desires with spiritual desires. So instead of trying to empty the mind, the solution is to fill the mind with Krishna and Krishna's activities and devotional services. The last verse, 5.29, is Bhoktaram Yagyatapaswam Sarvaloke Maheshwaram Swatram Sarva Bhutanam Gyatwamam Shantim Rachati. That Krishna is Bhoktaram. Krishna is the goal of all paths of Karma Kanda, Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga. Krishna is the well-wishing friend of all. And 5.29 verse is known as the peace formula verse. One cannot have peace from external satisfaction because external situations are bound to be disrupted. Krishna is stating when people are internally peaceful, then they can radiate peace outwards. Krishna is Bhoktaram, supreme enjoyer. But when I want to enjoy separate from Krishna, means I am fighting with Krishna because I am trying to take his position of Bhokta. 5.29 also states how Krishna is the goal of various paths. First he says Bhoktaram Yajna, that Krishna is saying, I am the Bhokta of all Yajna, and Yajna or sacrifices are performed by those practicing Karma Kanda and Karma Yoga. Krishna is saying, I am the goal of those who are practicing Karma Kanda and Karma Yoga. Then he says, Tapaswam, austerities are performed by Jnanis to be detached from this world. So Krishna is saying, I am the goal of Jnana Yogis also. Then he says, Sarva Loke Maheshwaram. Krishna is saying the lokas of demigods are actually my lokas only. Demigods are secondary proprietors. I am the ultimate proprietor. And Krishna is saying, come back to me. Suadram, the goal of Ashtanga Yoga. Krishna is saying the Lord that the Ashtanga Yogi is trying to perceive, I am that Lord. That's a quick summary of chapter 5. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Verse 5.29, to help understand, God is the well-wisher and benefactor of everyone. And it's clear that when one doesn't turn towards the Lord, doesn't take the instructions, then he's not. But how do we see it in the context that as a devotee, you're turning slowly towards the Lord, you're taking steps towards Lord, but still you're faced with so much in the material world, and sometimes you feel that is he really, your benefactor? Sometimes the doubt comes up. How can we understand this? How can we overcome this?
Yeah. So there's a progression that yes, we start with understanding theory that Krishna is Bhoktaram, Krishna is my best well-wisher. And whatever miseries we face in the material world is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17 and 18, as well as Canto 10, Chapter 14, verse number 8, as well as is described by Kunti Maharani in Canto 1, Chapter 8. That how do we use the miseries to remember Krishna? Because the miseries are reactions of my own past bad karma. And it is by Lord's mercy that actually my misery is minimized. Actually, I have done much worse, and I should be getting much worse misery. But Lord is so kind that He's minimizing my misery. This way we can use the miseries to remember Krishna. So this surrender to Krishna is not passive, it's active. So we have to continue to follow his instructions. And the miseries are given to the devotees so as to increase the remembrance of Krishna. We have to change our thought process from the default thought process being, why is this misery happening to me, to how can I use the misery to remember Krishna? Because material world is by default a place of misery. So you have to practice on a day-to-day basis, anukulye se sankalpa, pratikulye se varjitam. That whatever activity is anukul for bhakti, I will do it. And whatever activity is pratikul for bhakti, I will reject. Plus a simple example for the process of surrender is, Srila Prabhupada has described, that if you are always honoring prasadam only and not eating other things, well, that's a sign of surrender, because you are saying, no, Krishna is Bhoktaram, he has to accept first. Does these points help you, Nitya? Others?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Vimal Prabhu?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, Vimal Prabhu, go ahead.
To make sure that I heard right. You said Arjuna was focused on body, then Krishna moved him to soul, then Krishna moved him to Paramatma, and then Krishna tells him that I am the Paramatma. Am I right?
You are correct.
And Prabhuji, just one more thing. Uh, so you said unfulfilled karma leads to krodha, and krodha leads to what?
Yeah. Lobha.
Lobha.
Fulfilled. Yeah, lobha means greed. So fulfilled karma leads to lobha, that I want more and more, and unfulfilled karma leads to krodha or anger. Yes, krodha can also lead to further anger, but both ways, karma or desire or lust is a trap, because if it is unfulfilled karma leads to krodha. And if my desire, if is fulfilled, it leads to lobha, that I want more and more and more of this material world. Vimal Prabhu?
Question. You said we all lives with five wives, five senses, and the sixth one is mind.
Correct.
And what are those senses? Is it a sense of hearing, smelling, all those we talking about, or something else?
Yeah, you are correct. All the senses.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right, very good. Abhishek Prabhu had a
Uh,
question.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, while preparing your presentation, there were 2 points which I found difficult. One was this four intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge. So, why specifically these four are mentioned to be fixed?
Yeah, because these are subtle body, and we reside where our subtle body is. We had discussed this example that a drunkard, he may be sitting in office or at home, but that's not where he is sitting. His mind is focused on where he can get the alcohol, right? So where is physically the drunkard may be sitting at home or at office, but his mind is, where can I get my alcohol? So he's actually residing or sitting and thinking where his subtle mind is. So it's the subtle mind that takes us where we physically are or where we are engaged in. Therefore, the subtle parts of our body, if we fix the subtle part of our body, then physically also we'll follow the subtle parts of our body. And therefore, it's very important to fix the subtle parts of our body on Krishna. Abhishek Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And one more question was this verse 5.14. It is said that embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activity, nor does he induce people to act. So, the when it says he does not create it activity, I find it little confusing because the soul is still responsible, but it is said he doesn't create activities.
Yeah, it's the same point we have discussed in 3.27, that when 3.27 also says that soul is not the doer. When the 3.27 says soul is not the doer and 5.14 says he does not create activities, the point to understand is soul is not the only doer. So for any activity to happen in the material world, five things have to happen simultaneously. That soul desires, Supreme Lord sanctions, Prakriti executes, the senses, and the endeavor itself. So these five things have to happen simultaneously. Soul alone cannot do anything. Without Lord's sanction, how is the soul going to do? Right? And without senses, how is the soul going to execute? So, yes, soul has the desire. But what it's saying is, once the desire happens, it's the material nature going and executing. But there are these five factors that come together. for any activity to happen. Abhishek Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right, rest of you.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Parth Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a small confusion in my mind. That is, it is prescribed that you should go, you should continue work. You don't renounce, you don't stop working, but while working, don't wish for fruits.
Correct.
So renunciation of fruits.
Correct.
And the motive is only to get liberation.
Yeah, motive is,
Isn't it?
yeah, motive is
Motivation.
Motive is purification first,
Purification.
and then you will.
My question is, so there is a definite motive. Otherwise, why will renunciation of fruit?
Yeah, so there's also a progression that yes, we all start by saying I need to get purified so I can go back home to Godhead. So this desire of wanting to go back to Godhead is not wrong. It's a spiritual desire.
Okay.
And Srimad Bhagavatam should be 3.29.13 goes on to explain. Lord Kapila is speaking that verse, and Lord Kapila is Krishna himself. Lord Kapila or Krishna says that my devotees do not accept any of the 5 kinds of liberation if there is no service attached to it. So yes, we start that, okay, I want to get purified so I can get liberated. But as you progress, as your purification progresses, then you are not focused on going back home to Godhead. Your focus becomes that how can I serve Krishna wherever I am. Parth Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, now it is clear.
Yeah, very good.
That is a spiritual desire.
Yeah, very good. Archana?
Thank you.
Yeah, the question was similar to Parth Prabhu only, Prabhuji. So in this material world, now this life, if someone is doctor, teacher, so it is also depend on their past karma, and they are doing that work just to get purified. And instead of getting purified, we are asking for a fruit and we are creating a bondage.
Yeah, you are correct that whosoever is having whatever material ability is coming from past inclinations, that how best they can serve their desires, whether to earn money or exhaust their karma. And yes, whatever they are earning, well, it will cause bondage. They just have to give up the desire to the fruits. Archana, what was your last part of the question?
Yeah, that was for my question, Prabhuji. Clear now, yeah. Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question too.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So Bhaktara means Supreme Lord is the enjoyer, supreme enjoyer. So, but the living entities are all suffering. How can he be the supreme enjoyer, like when we are all suffering mostly?
So everything belongs to the Lord, and we have to use it, everything in Krishna's service. Just as, say, when we are in office, we are given office phone and office laptop. We are supposed to use it for office purposes and not for my own enjoying for whatever, say, browsing internet or watching cricket or movies or whatnot. Similarly, everything in the material world is belong to Krishna. Therefore, he says, Bhoktaram Yagatapasvam Sarva Loke Maheshwaram, that everything belongs to me, and we have to use it in Krishna's service. Now, this suffering of the soul is described in 15.7 with the word karsati, suffering. That the souls are suffering because of their enjoying mentality. Krishna did not cause the suffering for them. It was the soul's desire to enjoy, separate from Krishna, and enjoy the modes of material nature, which leads to misery. By the process of using everything in Krishna's service, which is described in 9.27, that verse starts with Yat karosi yat juhosi, that whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, everything you do it as an offering to the Lord, then you will get purified and get out of misery. So yes, we are in the material world, we are suffering. But if we follow the process of 9.27, that we offer everything to the Lord, then we get purified, our mind and senses gets purified, and then our suffering will end because we'll go back home to Godhead. Matan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Nitya?
Prabhu, one last question. Please clarify kindly, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga lead to same result as far as liberation being the goal. But with the realization, Jnana Yoga leads only to Brahman realization, but Karma Yoga elevated to Bhakti Yoga can lead to Bhagavan realization. So the results are seemingly different.
So, if you recall yoga ladder discussion on the destination attained by the various yoga paths. So Gyan Yoga only without Bhakti, at best one can attain Brahman effulgence. And similarly, if somebody is doing Karma Yoga alone without Bhakti, that Karma Yoga also one can attain Brahman effulgence, provided is doing the Karma Yoga properly. Now, if somebody adds Bhakti, means the Karma Yoga is to satisfy the Lord, then you are still acting using your mind and senses actively. At that point, the Karma Yogi, who is at the highest level of Bhakti Yoga, he has the option to attain Brahman effulgence or Paramatma realization or Bhagwan realization. Therefore, Krishna says that whatever you were planning to attain by Jnana Yoga, you can attain the same by Karma Yoga also. But Karma Yoga can actually grant you much more. And in practice, Karma Yoga is easier as compared to Jnana Yoga because soul can never sit idle. Therefore, Krishna is saying that yes, you do Jnana Yoga, you will attain liberation. You do Karma Yoga, you will attain liberation. But in practice, Karma Yoga is easier to follow. Plus, Karma Yoga can grant you more than liberation because of Bhakti Yoga. So if you were to add Bhakti Yoga in Jnana Yoga process, yes, you can attain the same goal of Bhagwan realization also. But the challenge with Jnana Yoga is first stopping the activity is a challenge. And then restarting the activity after you have stopped is again a bigger challenge. So both ways, Jnana Yoga is a major challenge. Therefore, Krishna says in 12.5 that while in the embodied body, Jnana Yoga only leads to dukkha and misery. Nitya.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very clear. Thank you.
All right, we are a little behind. Let's quickly finish chapter 6. I will give a quick overview of chapter 6 and when we read the verses, let's read it at a faster pace, please. So chapter 6, Krishna will describe that when one has to eventually renounce, what should one do? Krishna will recommend Ashtanga Yoga instead of Jnana Yoga. So chapter 6 is titled Dhyan Yoga, also known as Ashtanga Yoga. Is divided into 5 sections. Section 1 is verses 1 to 9 from Aruruksha to Aruda stage. So this section talks about advancement on the stage of yoga from Aruruksha means beginning level to Aruda means advanced level. So verses 1 to 9 is the process one has to go through by which one can renounce the world to focus on meditation. Now, this requires certain preliminary purification, which is described in verses 1 to 9. Section 2 is verses 10 to 32, from practice to perfection. This describes the sadhana of Ashtanga Yogi, that progressively how one will attain perfection when one is practicing Ashtanga Yoga. So verses 10 to 15 describe realization of Brahman. Verses 16 to 23 describes realization of Paramatma. Verses 24 to 32 describe realization of Bhagwan. Section 3 is verses 33 to 36, dealing with the mind, the main obstacle on the path of yoga. Section 4 is verses 37 to 45, that if mind deviates the yogi, what is the destination of unsuccessful yogi? And section 5 is verses 46 and 47, the topmost yogi fixes his mind on Krishna. So after going through elaborate analysis of the process of Ashtanga Yoga, as well as the various yoga paths, Krishna eventually comes to the conclusion that Bhakti Yoga is the best and the highest. So chapter 6 takes us slowly up on the yoga ladder to perfection of fixing the mind on Krishna. And then in the Bhakti Yoga section, chapters 7 to 12, Krishna will describe an alternative way to attain the same result of fixing mind on Krishna. Vimal Prabhu will read chapter 6, verses 1 to 9. This is section 1. Title is From Aruruksha to Aruda Stage.
Krishna Prabhuji. Chapter 6, Text 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. Text 2. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of a Pandav. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Text 3. For one who is nepotic in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga sessions of all material activities is said to be the means. Text 4. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activity. Text 5. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Text 6. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Text 7. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Text 8. A person is said to be established in self realizations and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied in virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such as person is situated in transcendent and is self control. He sees everything, whether it be pebble, stone, or gold, as the same. Text 9. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well wishers, affectionate benefactors, and the natural meditors and enemies, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with the equal mind. Hare Krishna.
Very good. Shivangi will read section 2, verses 10 to 32. Title is From Practice to Perfection. This is the sadhana of Ashtanga Yogi. Shivangi, faster pace, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. Text 10. And a transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deerskin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi or Arjuna if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self. In the stage of perfection, called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation, thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion, he realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness and transcendental loving service to the Lord. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Such a yogi, who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Text 32. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Hare Krishna.
Ritu will read section 3, verses 33 to 36. Title is Dealing with the Mind, the Main Obstacle in Yoga.
Hare Krishna. Text 33. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Text 34. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think is more difficult than controlling the wind. Text 35. Lord Sri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Text 36. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Hare Krishna.
Matan Prabhu will read section 4, verses 37 to 45. Title is If Mind Deviates the Yogi, What is the Destination of Unsuccessful Yogi?
Hare Krishna. Text 37, Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist, who in the beginning takes the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Text 38. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, who is bewildered from the path of transcendence, fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a raven cloud with no position in any sphere? 39. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Text 40. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Partha, transcendentalists engage in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Text 41. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planet of pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Text 42. Or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such birth is rare in this world. Text 43. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Text 44. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogi principles even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of scriptures. Text 45. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then ultimately achieving perfection after many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal.
Malti will read last section 5, which is verses 46 and 47. Title is The Topmost Yogi Fixes the Mind on Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Text 46. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empirist, and greater than fruitive workers. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. 47. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abide in me, think of me with himself and render transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Hare Krishna.
Very good. Divya?
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, seeking permission from you all, Srila Prabhupada and all the gurus in disciplic succession, and Shri Radha and Krishna to present my attempt at summarizing chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. Please forgive me in advance for my mistakes and shortcomings. Chapter 6 is the last chapter in the Karma Yoga section of the Bhagavad Gita, and it is titled Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. This chapter focuses on the Ashtanga Yoga process, the different stages of spiritual realization, and the importance of conquering the mind and fixing the mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yoga is the process of connecting with the Lord, and yogi is one who is connected with the Lord. To become a yogi requires sannyas or detachment from the material world, and one must give up all desires to enjoy selfishly. A yogi is not one who is idle with no action, but rather he is a sannyasi who is completely free of selfish desires and he works without taking any of the fruits of his action. He understands he is the eternal servant of the Lord. The Lord describes an eightfold process called Ashtanga Yoga, through which one can become a yogi. This yoga process helps one to achieve perfect mental equilibrium and control of the senses and mind. At the neophyte stage of this process, Aruruksha, one must follow Yama, these are certain don'ts, Niyam, these are some actions to do, Asana, their positions of sadhana, pranayam, which is a breathing process for regulation. At the advanced stage of this process, Aruda, one progresses to pratyahar, which is shutting off the senses, dhyan, which is meditating on Lord Vishnu, dharana, which is controlling and fixing the mind on complete absorption, and samadhi, which is complete absorption. The regulated activities performed in the world in the neophyte stage will lead to spiritual progression, and once one reaches the advanced stage, the gradual cessation of activity will lead to spiritual advancement. The difference between these two stages is the control of the mind. Ashtanga yoga is practiced through external seclusion and internal control and concentration of the mind. To even be considered a neophyte in the Ashtanga yoga process, one must have these three characteristics. The first one does not engage in fruitive activities which lead to sense gratification. One does not engage in fruitive activities that result in sense gratification. And lastly, one has internally given up the desire for sense gratification. This yogic practice involves a highly regulated lifestyle. One cannot eat too little or too much. One cannot sleep too little or too much. And one must be free from sex life. One who is regulated and not extravagant in eating, sleeping, entertainment, and recreation will have a focused yoga to get fruitful results. Extravagance in material life stops focus in yoga. To practice this yoga, it is recommended that one find a secluded place without distractions and sit in a steady asana to fix the mind on the Lord or the Paramatma within. Thereafter, one works to purify the heart and bring the mind to a state completely free of agitation and fear. The one who constantly practices this yoga will get peace and have cessation of material existence and situate himself next to Brahman or reach Brahman realization. Thereby, the yogi who has conquered the mind has transcended the three dualities of life: cold or heat at the bodily level, happiness and distress at the mental level, and honor or dishonor at the ego level. After the yogi has completely controlled the senses, mind, and consciousness, which is a subtle body, the yogi is situated at the level of Atma and will have no more material desires. The mind will be like a flame in a windless place. It will not flicker even when one interacts in the material world. Material desires are what cause the mind to flicker. Practicing yoga with determination, faith, and with no other thought except fixation on the self will lead to the abandoning of all desires born of mental speculation. Once the yogi has reached the stage of mental conviction, the yogi will progress to a state of self-trance or samadhi and reach perfection through the freedom from all miseries arising from material desires. This Ashtanga yoga practice first focuses on connecting with the soul or Atma, and through there one will get connected through the Supreme Soul or Paramatma. A yogi whose mind is fixed on Lord Krishna attains the highest level of transcendental happiness. A true yogi sees the Paramatma in himself and in every other being, and sees everything in the Lord. This is Paramatma realization and is referring to the Samadarshana or equal vision. Once a yogi realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme Soul, he worships the Lord, understanding that the Lord and the Paramatma in the self are the one and the same. The yogi becomes free from all material contamination, all reactions of his past deeds, and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. The yogi becomes situated in the Lord, meaning the yogi's will has overlapped with the Lord's will, and he endeavors to fulfill the Lord's desires, thus reaching Bhagavan realization. Upon hearing the Lord's description of the Ashtanga yoga process, Arjuna raises some practical concerns over the difficulty of following this practice. He cites the four characteristics of the mind that make this process challenging. The mind is chanchal, restless and curious; pramati, mad and agitated; balavad, which is strong and intimidating; and dridam, which is obstinate and it won't give up on undesirable things. The Lord sympathizes with Arjuna and agrees that the mind is very difficult to control, but he affirms that it is possible with a suitable level of control and detachment. If the mind is disturbed, then perfection of yoga is impossible. It is important to note both Arjuna's attitude of humility when clarifying doubts and the Lord's attitude of not being chastising. This helps the one asking the question to feel more supported and connected to the subject matter. Arjuna continued to ask the Lord about what happens if a person on the Ashtanga Yoga path cannot leave the body before attaining the perfection stage, or if their mind becomes deviated in the middle. He also inquires about where the people who are transitioning from the path of karma to the path of moksha end up when they leave their bodies. The Lord reassures Arjuna emotionally by stating that those who work in auspicious ways will never meet with inauspicious destinations in this world, this life, or the next life, or in the spiritual world. Once again, it is important to note and learn from the Lord's attitude of compassion and emotional support when responding to someone who is in anxiety or emotional distress. The Lord further shares that for one who has practiced spirituality before leaving the body, they will proceed to higher planets to enjoy the fruits of their pious activities and then be reborn in earth to either a devotee family or a rich aristocratic family, and they can continue their spiritual journey from where they left off. A devotee family provides the right natural environment for spiritual practices, and there is less risk of deviation due to material world temptations. In some rare cases, for those who have practiced to the advanced stages of spirituality, they will be reborn in a family of advanced transcendentalists and will likely be engaged in spirituality right from the beginning of their life. Such individuals will revive the divine consciousness of their previous lives to make further progress to achieve complete success. Just based on what spiritual credits one has previously accumulated, one who comes back will automatically be attracted to spirituality in the next life without even actively seeking it. As the purification process continues over many births, finally one will attain the supreme goal. The Ashtanga Yoga system explained in this chapter was prescribed by the Lord specifically for the Satya Yuga, as the humans at that time had prana or air based bodies. This system is largely impossible to be followed in the current day and age, as our survival is dependent on the consumption of food and water. The Lord will go on to explain the best yoga practice for Kali Yuga in the next few chapters and how it is much easier than Ashtanga Yoga. However, there are still some important lessons and principles we can apply from the Ashtanga Yoga to our personal life and practice of spirituality. Some of these practical lessons include applying the principle of regulation to our material entertainment and recreation, to our eating and sleeping habits, carrying out our prescribed duties with detachment and avoiding things that further entangle us in Maya, engaging in our spiritual practice with a strong faith and discipline, endeavoring to see all living beings around us with compassion and equality, and using some of the techniques to keep the mind focused during our japa, etc. Another important point to understand from this chapter is the attention the yoga process places on training the mind. This is because the mind is the door to our consciousness and soul. Those whose mind is fixed on material things can only see material things, even when they are in a spiritual environment like the temple. Their focus will not be on the Lord, but instead on material things in the temple. However, if the mind is open to the Lord, then one can see Him in many different situations and environments in life. One will gradually attain what the mind is focused on. Therefore, the Lord says, use the mind to focus on Him and attain liberation. The mind is like horses that pull a chariot, and the charioteer driving represents the soul. If the mind or the horses are in control of the chariot will get dragged all over the place and may never reach its destination. However, if the charioteer or soul is in control, the horses or mind can be focused and directed to reach one's destination at an extremely fast pace. If our mind and senses are in control, then we can live a regulated life and move very fast on the spiritual path. This is how the mind can be one's friend or enemy depending on who is in control. The mind by default will go off track. So we have to train ourselves to recognize when the mind goes off track and keep bringing it back on track through conscious, focused cultivation. We need to always be alert with the mind, and there's no room to rest because the mind is constantly working. Otherwise, the further we give control to the mind, the more we will get entangled in the material world and end up becoming slaves to Maya and the mind. We are the eternal servants of the Lord, and real yoga is connecting with Him and following His orders. The Krishna conscious path of bhakti allows us to naturally progress to perfect surrender to the Lord. When we wholeheartedly focus on Lord Krishna and connect with Him, He helps us to control the mind and we become better at resisting it. For our circumstances, instead of trying to empty the mind like Ashtanga yogis, it is better to fill the mind completely with Krishna conscious activities and give the mind a safe playing space. As the Lord Himself says in the very last shloka of this chapter, the greatest of all yogis is the one who is constantly absorbed in thinking of Him and rendering transcendental loving service to Him. The shloka is Yoginam api sarvesham matgate antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tumo mataha. This concludes my presentation of chapter 6. Thank you all for your attention and patience.
Any questions, comments, realizations for Divya?
Prabhu, just a flawless presentation. Always thought chapter 6 Ashtanga Yoga was very hard to summarize, but Mataji made it sound so easy.
Very good.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna.
It was so calming, means the soul was totally in what Divya was presenting, Prabhuji. It was excellent.
Okay, very good. Divya has already presented near perfect presentation of chapter 6. But let me quickly summarize, which will largely be a repetition of what Divya has just said. And then I will provide a little feedback on the presentation. So chapter 6 is titled Dhyan Yoga, also known as Ashtanga Yoga. When one has to renounce the world, Krishna says to practice Ashtanga Yoga instead of Dhyan Yoga to attain liberation. At initial Aruruksa stage, activity or Karma Yoga is the means of advancement. And when one becomes Aruda, means advanced, then one gives up work. Just by giving up work, one does not move from Aruruksha to Aruda stage. The difference is the control of the mind, to be able to be equipoised to external things. The eightfold activities are the stages of Ashtanga Yoga, are meant to achieving perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses. The eightfold activities are Yama, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi. To come to Arudha or advanced stage, one does not engage in fruitive activities or does not engage in fruitive activities that leads to self-gratification. Mind is the main obstacle in coming to the Yoga Arudha advanced stage. Mind is the cause of bondage, as well as mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects causes bondage. Then mind is enemy because mind is in control. And mind detached from sense objects causes liberation. Then mind is friend because soul is in control of the mind. To free the mind from the default attraction to sense objects, we need to fix the mind on Krishna. We need mind and senses to act and interact with the world, the material world. But we have to regulate our mind and senses. As long as one's mind remains unconquered, one has to serve the anarthas of lust, anger, greed, etc. But when mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to follow dictations of Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Paramatma within. And Srila Prabhupada says, we are always servants. Either soul is servant of Krishna or Maya. There is no third choice. One who has conquered the mind becomes Samadarshina towards gold, pebbles, friends, enemies, etc. Next, Krishna describes the core sadhana of Ashtanga Yogi, meaning what the Ashtanga Yogi practices to elevate himself. Just as in Bhakti Yoga, one does chanting, reading scriptures, doing devotional service, etc. as the sadhana to elevate himself. So here is the sadhana of Ashtanga Yogi. So Ashtanga Yoga is not the yoga process for Kali. Some of the Ashtanga Yoga sadhana items can be used while practicing Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So you reside in secluded place that does not have material desires. Sit on a steady asana, which is not too high or not too low. Sit on a deer skin to avoid animal predators. Then fix the mind with one attention. Thus you can control the mind and senses. Sit straight with body, head, neck in a straight line. Look at the tip of the nose. Regulate yourself in eating and sleeping, entertainment, such material activities. Otherwise, yoga is not focused. Material desires causes my consciousness to flicker. Hence, fill your mind with spiritual desires. So before we did chapter 6, Nitya asked this question about material, like not having faith or having doubt. Why? The reason is material desires. Material desires cause my consciousness to flicker. Therefore, the solution is we have to fill our mind with spiritual desires. The true yogi sees Paramatma in all beings. And Krishna goes on to say that, by the way, I am that Paramatma in all living beings. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Arjuna says, the system of Ashtanga Yoga does not seem practical to me at all, because Ashtanga Yoga involves the mind. It is easier to control the wind than the mind, because of the four characteristics of the mind. The mind is chanchal, mind is childlike, restless. Second, mind is pramati, mad, agitating. Mind is balavad, very strong. And mind is dradham, obstinate. So in response, Krishna first sympathizes with Arjuna. And this is the learning for all of us, that when somebody is coming to us with an inquiry, we don't chastise. No, we first have to sympathize that somebody is struggling, let me help. And this is what Krishna is teaching us through his actions. So Krishna first sympathizes with Arjuna that yes, it is very difficult to control the mind, but it is possible with suitable practice. It is possible to control the mind. As Krishna said, to have patience, persistence and detachment to control the mind. Therefore, Arjuna asks a question. He says, okay, controlling the mind may be possible, but it will take a very long time. And what if one starts the process and is not able to complete? What happens to the person who takes to the path of yoga, but later gives it up? Krishna says there is no loss on the path of transcendence, that one does not lose it, nor it is decreased. Those who have done some spiritual advancement, they go to heaven to fulfill their desires. And after their pious credits are exhausted, they again take birth either in pious or prosperous family to revive their spirituality from where they left off. And the other possibility is one who has made significant spiritual advancement but not able to complete, he immediately takes birth among advanced transcendentalists to revive and continue his spirituality from where he had left off. So after going through analysis of the various processes, Krishna comes to the conclusion that Bhakti Yoga is the highest and the best. And chapter 6, verse number 47, the last verse, is where chapter ends and Bhakti Yoga starts. Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham mat gaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamamata. So Krishna is not giving a blanket endorsement for any yoga path. Krishna is not recommending yoga as a process for bodily fitness. Rather, Krishna is using yoga as a means for connection with the supreme absolute truth. And Srila Prabhupada would quote this 6.47 verse quite often, saying yoga should culminate in bhakti and in Bhagwan. Bhakti yoga is the highest because bhakti yoga includes the action and detachment of karma yoga. It includes the knowledge of Jnana yoga. Bhakti yoga includes the meditation of Ashtanga yoga. Plus, of course, Bhakti yoga has love and devotion. So Krishna has strongly stated that connecting with him is the highest truth. So the flow of the first 6 chapters is that action or renunciation were Arjuna's options. Krishna revealed much more. Within action, there can be renunciation in action also. And Krishna combined action and renunciation as the third choice, which is not just renunciation in action, rather it is devotion in action. So Arjuna's spotlight was on the body. Krishna moved the spotlight from body to soul. Soul can be liberated by doing Nishkam Karma Yoga. And from soul, Krishna moved the spotlight onto Paramatma to attain liberation. And Krishna goes on to say that, by the way, that Paramatma, that is me, Krishna himself. From 6.47 onwards, the focus is much more on Mam. Mam means Krishna, means the focus is a lot more on Krishna. That's a quick summary of chapter 6. Questions, comments, realizations? All right. Let me give quick feedback on the presentation style. So Abhishek Prabhu, no doubt, did a very good presentation in terms of covering all the points. So I would recommend that the way Abhishek Prabhu presented of going verse by verse or little bit about section by section, you don't need to go that way. You don't need to focus on verse by verse or section by section. You just talk in a natural flow way. That how one topic leads to the next without really referring to that section 1 talks about this and then section 2 talks about this. No, it should be just a natural flow of straddling into from one topic to the next topic. Now, also try to use this high and low tone to emphasize certain important points. So just as, say, when I was doing the last few statements, that how did I say? Where, say, one of the point I said that Krishna combined action and renunciation as third choice. Not just renunciation in action, rather devotion in action. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to emphasize on the word devotion in action. And I'm also trying to emphasize that not just renunciation in action. Right? So yes, nothing wrong with that, how you are naturally talking. but try to emphasize. Keep the audience engaged with this high and low tone. Many of you follow this. I'm just specifically focusing on the way Abhishek Prabhu did today. Now, it's his natural style. I'm not saying that Abhishek Prabhu did something wrong. No, what I'm just saying is focus. Try to have this high and low tone to emphasize certain points just to keep the audience back on track. I don't know about you all. When I hear any recording, I only retain 10%. Why? Because my mind is always agitated, is running here and there. Now, Divya's presentation, I have no comments because it was flawless presentation, covered everything to perfection. So if somebody was to listen in, say in future, somebody is going to listen to these recordings. For chapter 6, I would recommend you listen to Divya's presentation, not mine. Focus on Divya's presentation. Divya presented to perfection. And the learning from Abhishek Prabhu's presentation is that don't focus so much on going verse by verse or section by section. Just talk naturally. Straddle from one topic to the next and use the high and low tone. Again, I'm not chastising or criticizing Abhishek Prabhu. No, Abhishek Prabhu still covered everything. And the last point is that this presentation, try to be within a reasonable time. We can go talking forever. Yeah, I haven't given a time deadline for each chapter, but consider about 10 plus few minutes for your presentation. Could be 10, 12. There's no hard and fast rule, but our intent is that we keep our presentation to as concise as is possible. And the reason is that focus on preaching activity. Many of you are preachers. You go on the street. Everybody in the material world is running, literally running. When you are going on book distribution, they don't even stop to listen to you. We have to run with them to briefly explain to them what spirituality is. Therefore, we have to be concise. If we keep on talking and talking and talking, well, we lose interest. I'm hoping that you all take my feedback not as chastisement, but as room for improvement. Because spirituality, there is no limit how much you can improve. Krishna is unlimited, so you can just keep on improving and improving and improving. There's no limit. So many of you do all of you do presentations perfectly. It's just fine-tuning. So our goal is to fine-tune. I'm not saying you're doing something wrong. No, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is just fine-tune. Everybody on the same page?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So next week, I have on the screen, we have Matan Prabhu presenting Yoga Ladder, then Nitya chapter 7 and Divya chapter 8. So we are getting very close to 9 o'clock. I won't answer the remainder of the questions. So next class will go a little faster because we have an additional topic for Yoga Ladder. So our next class will start at the start with Yoga Ladder. There will be nothing to read. So we'll start bang at the start with the Yoga Ladder. And then we'll follow this process of reading chapters 7 and 8 and we'll continue that way. Shivangi?
Sorry, Prabhuji.
All right. We are just getting close to 9 o'clock here in Toronto time. We'll stop here. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna, everyone. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.